Okay, here we're back, and next speaker is Marina Miletic. She's head of partnership at Kodos Foundation, and it's a very interesting presentation. It's about rewarding a sustainable commute with a new purpose-driven token. So it's a very interesting use case, and without further ado, because we're late.
Thank you. So, I wanted to start with the definition of purpose-driven tokens. First, the academic one, because that tends to be useful. So, purpose-driven tokens are usually defined as tokens that have the goal to incentivize individual behavior that can contribute to a collective positive outcome. But this definition is nice. It's in one great book called Token Economy. But I think that it's better to use some real-life examples of purpose-driven tokens. So one of the most simple, basic examples is actually the bottle deposit scheme. It works on a very simple premise where the positive outcome we are trying to incentivize is to incentivize people to return their used bottles and cans. And for the return, they get a small voucher. It's usually about 25 cents. But still, even though the reward is not really high, still some countries get up to 90% of return rates, which proves that a simple, basic mechanism could really contribute to collective change. And then I wanted to proceed with an example which is more crypto-based, because we are talking about crypto projects here. So those would be move-to-earn projects. How move-to-earn projects work is they follow the premise of the more you move, the more tokens or cryptocurrencies you can basically earn. So the apps in the background of move-to-earn projects serve as movement validators, and people using those apps are incentivized to move more by getting tokens and also by leveraging the idea of community and challenges within those apps. So we have one example of bottle deposit scheme, which is more on a sustainability note, and we have a second example, which is more on crypto side, but incentivizes here the positive outcome is physical activity. The technique in the background of both of these projects and purpose-driven tokens in general is the nudging technique. The idea here is that the nudge basically gently pushes people in a desirable direction. So here we are not limiting the options. We are not punishing people for making undesirable choices. We are just slightly pushing people towards more designable choices. So that is the technique in literature called the nudging technique. So now we know that purpose-driven tokens can solve some problems. So this is the problem that we selected. So we decided to tackle CO2 emissions. CO2 emissions are a big problem that we cannot tackle in total, so we decided to focus on a specific area. This area is actually car commuting, because you usually hear about the fact that transport is one of the biggest contributors to CO2 emissions, and usually people focus on travel and transport of goods, but what people kind of fail to realize is the fact that commuting really contributes a lot. Commuting contributes like up to 5% of global CO2 emissions. Why? Because, firstly, 80% of people in the United States and over 70% of people in the EU use combustion engine cars to commute to work every single day. So that frequency and repetitiveness of this action basically means that the issue is not a single commute. The issue is repetitiveness that brings us to up to 5% of global CO2 emissions by the sheer act of commuting back to work or university or wherever, like twice a day, once in one direction, once back. Because if you just take 200 working days and it's more back and forth, that's 400 commutes already. So this frequency really adds up and brings us to the problem of CO2 emissions that we can actually tackle by ourselves. So we identified the problem, then we needed to find a solution. So what we did is we developed the Kodos app. Kodos app serves as a movement validator, so the ML in the background is able to automatically detect which mode of transit you are using. And each time you make a sustainable choice, so you walk to university or work, or you take public transit, or you go by bike, you are provided with the CO2 calculation, basically the CO2 avoidance calculation. We calculate how much CO2 you saved compared to a combustion engine car. Each sustainable choice triggers a smart contract that then rewards user with a sustainable token. So the idea here is to, with small tokens, nudge people towards leaving their combustion engine cars at home and taking more sustainable modes of transit. So we developed the Kodos app as a tool to do so. The Kodos app also has the Friends and Community tab, because it's important to keep the app engagement high if you want the project to succeed. So we have the Friends and Community tab. There you can challenge your friends, you can see your progress, you can compare with them. Also you can take on challenges, you can earn badges, you can complete quests, you can level up. So there is a gamification feature and the social feature to the Kodos gamified side. And the reward is Kodos token. Kodos token is registered as both payment and utility token. What that means is the utility token side is what I just mentioned in the gamification and social features. So you can challenge your friends, you can buy boosters, you can buy upgrades. You can basically use it within the ecosystem, or you can use it as a payment token. As a payment token, you can just exchange it on crypto exchange platforms, or what we are working as a long-term integrated solution is you could pay for services, sustainable services like public transit tickets, e-scooter subscriptions, so other sustainable mobility services that you would be able to pay with the Kodos token. So Kodos token is officially registered as both payment and utility token, and that's the token that we give out to the people that are willing to make their commutes more sustainable. So we developed an app, we developed a token, and now the question was, how do we actually implement this whole project? So we started a pilot project. Pilot project started in October, where we started onboarding first users and hearing their initial feedback from their experience with the app so far. What the users that signed up as beta testers get is they get initial Kodos token airdrop. So when the app launches in Q1 in 2024, they can maintain the tokens they earned. They can also maintain the level that they are currently in the app, because you can progress in levels. Also, each week we have prize drawing, where we initially reward people for their time and effort and feedbacks. And also one good positive side of the nudging technique is you can actually see how much CO2 you save daily, so that is something that people usually like. So that's on the individual side. But there is also a side of organization. So we have a list of companies, universities, municipalities that all joined the Kodos pilot project because they wanted to see what the app is about and what we can provide to them. What we found so far is that the most interesting part is the ESG or CSR reporting. So anonymized data sets about about how people commute, how far they commute, which mode of transit they're using, because that's something, scope 3 emissions are something that companies and universities need to report. There are also marketing and PR opportunities, the idea of having a green certificate and making your campus or your workplace more sustainable. Of course, there is the entire increased carbon awareness from the employees, and also Kodos as a foundation provides many educational materials, access to courses, etc., which also many employers find beneficial. Team building is gamified experience is mostly interesting for people in HR. They have the access to the moderator dashboard. Moderator can set specific challenges and quests for their workplace that are more fit to their specific needs. So you can make like competitions between HR or development or marketing. You can group people into different groups, and then you can make this entire pilot project more interesting. And what's the biggest part, because companies like things easy, they need to invite the people, the rest, so the account creation, maintenance, and everything is handled by us. So that's why people and organizations joined our pilot project. The biggest question we always get, which is why it is here, is the data security and privacy. So the entire operation is GDPR compliant. Data sets are anonymized when they are transferred to your employer, and also internally they are anonymized. So we get is what I can see in the company side is we can see the average amount of kilometers commuted, we can see the most frequent modes of transit, but we are never able to see the actual information per user. So we actually created just aggregated data sets. And this is what we were able to do so far. So the people I mentioned in the pilot project, so now we have over 1,000 beta testers and 30 companies and 10 plus, which is 13 universities that started using Kodos app in their campuses or their workplace. That's happening in 15 pilot cities and also 15 pilot countries and 3 cities. When we say 3 cities, we mean that cities whose government entities onboarded on the Kodos project. And we started our fundraising, so we raised 3 million francs in the pre-seed round, and now we are in our seed round, so we are currently looking for investors for the next stage of our project. So if you are an individual company or a municipality that wants to join the project, now would be a great time to do so. And yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. I'm not sure how I'm on time, but if you have any questions. Okay. Okay, then questions, if there are any.
So, what is? So you mentioned 3 cities that are collaborating with you. So what are these cities?
We can be public about 2, so we can mention.
Yeah. Okay.
So there is always the
Okay,
privacy
if you
clause,
cannot mention.
But Municipality Casalanguida in Italy and the city of Geneva in Switzerland are 2 municipalities out of 3 that officially onboarded us. There is also, we'll soon have the 3rd one. So we won the Isle of Man, had the competition for the FinTech Innovation Challenge, and we were finalists. So we are also onboarding the Isle of Man. We are now in the process where they installed the Kodos app on their government phones, but that needs to go through the validation of data security officers and other technical people. So by the end of the month, we'll also have the Isle of Man officially onboarded, where they would like to have different government entities also part. So this number will be expanding soon.
So what was the biggest challenge so far in building the app or whatever? So from your point of view.
Building the app, so the biggest part is actually training the ML model. That's complex. There are different modes of transit. There are many aspects to actually calculating CO2 avoidance. But the biggest challenge for us was actually intersection of sustainability and crypto, because that's something I think that people don't understand. People say, okay, Bitcoin uses energy as much as like the state of Argentina, and they don't realize that, yes, Bitcoin, yes, but we are developing on Polygon blockchain, and there's this interesting number where I think 1 kilometer for CO2 saved is 1,400 Kodos transactions in like the CO2 emissions. And that's something that, because we are developing on Polygon because they have a green manifesto, they're also offsetting all of their operations. But this big misconception that crypto means pollution is something that we needed to explain to people. Also, there's always the question, are you tracking me? Like, will my employer be able to know where I went, which mode of transit we took? So are we polluting more than we are saving? And how does the data saving, data processing work? Are the 2 most frequent questions I get whenever somebody hears about the Kodos project. Those are the 2 questions. And also one question I frequently get is how will you be able to make sure that somebody is not cheating the system? And that's pretty self-explanatory just from the perspective. There is a KYC procedure, so you have to register, you have to be like adult person. But also there is a logical barrier of commuting. So you could maybe do it once, do it twice, but to actually get enough tokens for this to make sense for you, you would have to do it every single day. And there really isn't the point of somebody that's not commuting, going on the same route from house to somewhere, back and forth every single day to earn this amount of tokens. So there's like a logical barrier. There are always like technical solutions, but there's also the logical barrier of why would anybody do that? So because our token is kept, it's not like any. There are some projects that don't have a cap to their tokens, so we specifically chose commuting from the perspective that it's predictable. So there is amount of kilometers you are commuting, and it goes back and forth. That's the only trip you can possibly take. That's one thing. And also, since we know how many users, we can calculate, if they went every single day, we can calculate the maximum amount of tokens that can be generated. So we can easily avoid the inflation that happens when people on board to move to earn apps and just bike for the entire day and generate all of these tokens, which is why we specifically focused on commuting, because it's predictable and we can control the token and everything that goes in. So they're like, when you start researching the project, like we took into account all of the initial questions and feedbacks. We made all of the documents that if somebody, all the Q&As, so I have them now prepared, but those are usually the biggest questions. Like if somebody takes their phone and goes biking for an hour, that really doesn't make sense, because there is a benchmark route. So if you go from your home to work, there is like, if you went by walk, if you went by car, and if you went by bus. And if you go like around the entire city and then go to work with the bike, you will not be rewarded for the extra kilometers you did by diverting from the route.
So you don't get rewarded for exercising, for example?
No, this is specifically for commuting. So this is like one specific area that we decided to target.
Okay.
Because if we went, there is this problem, in my opinion, when people say that movement apps are sustainability. Some of them, yes. But you also have to take into account that if somebody goes for a walk, we cannot count that towards CO2 emissions, because it's not like you are walking with a car. So we cannot take into account somebody's physical exercise or walk in a park and compare it like if they went through a park with a car. So we needed to specifically focus on one action that we know is usually done by cars. And
Marina, this is a fascinating application, but you are providing the incentive through these tokens. And of course, the strength of the incentive or the nudge will depend in the end on the value of the token, which is determined somewhere on an exchange. So it is something that the value of the token is something you do not yourself control, but it will have a big impact on the incentives. So assume, you know, this is super successful and skyrockets and everybody wants to hold this token, then it will have a very powerful incentive, but it could also go in the other direction. So the incentive strength is somehow determined through a mechanism you do not control.
yes, what we can try to control is that in the beginning we did a survey. So before we launched our project, we wanted to know if people are actually interested in it. So we did a survey on 5,000 respondents just to see in general how they like the idea of Kodos and what would be the minimum reward to keep them actually engaged. And yes, here we are basing that on self-assessment, but we got initial information from people how much would they actually like to earn per month or per week. So and based on these inputs, we developed our token economy model. So we took that into account when trying to to develop tokens. And now the idea with the funding and everything is to provide enough value in the beginning for the counter value of these tokens for people, for them to pay off. And then of course, more people join. If token gets more utility, the bigger the value gets. But what our strategy is, we research what would be the minimum that people would actually find as incentivizing to use the app. And that's why we're also controlling the number of onboards in this pilot project, so we can control how much we are actually distributing. So we did that based on research, because we weren't able to guess how much money that would be.
That's interesting, of course. That's smart to do this in this way. But it might be also a good idea, you know, to keep this system modular in the following sense. I mean, you could provide incentives in many ways. So the token is just one of them. True. It is, of course, like from a selling point of view, it is cool because it's some new technology, it's crypto, but it's not necessarily that you have for the rest of it, you know. So maybe you might, as a hedge, have an option to incentivize in a completely different way if the token does not fly in the end.
Yes, so these are always the possibilities and things to take into account, but currently we are sticking with this formula. It works so far, so hopefully we hope that the user base will grow, the launch will be successful, and we'll be able to. Yeah. And I'm not sure how, again, we are on time. Okay, if you don't have any more questions. We don't. Okay, then we'll just.